Willpower. The ability to control your own thoughts and actions. The swimmer's willpower pushed him to swim against the tide and never give up. When the amount of willpower is low, it's harder for you to concentrate on making the right choice. Crackdown. Dealing with bad or illegal behavior in a more severe way. The crackdown on money laundering is part of a broader strategy to combat financial crimes. The government's crackdown on militancy has been met with mixed reactions from the public. Exploitation. The act of using someone unfairly for your own advantage. The company was accused of exploitation for paying its workers below minimum wage. Working at very low wages is only one form of exploitation many immigrant workers face. Anomaly. Something that deviates from what is standard. None of the astronauts were able to explain the anomaly they observed in space. In order to find the anomaly, scientists had to repeat the experiment over 100 times. Archetype. A typical example of a certain person or thing. According to the article, the year's most handsome man is the archetype of the perfect male. The film that won the Best Picture award should be considered the archetype of all future movies. Cacophony. A harsh, discordant mixture of sounds. The busy train station was a constant cacophony of trains arriving and departing. The sound of the insects crepitating in the marshland created a cacophony of nature. Conundrum. A confusing and difficult problem or question. The puzzle game was a conundrum that required strategy and problem-solving skills. The dilemma of choosing between two options was a conundrum for the decision maker. Cryptic. Mysterious or obscure in meaning. To assist novices, the magazine is offering a free guide to solving cryptic crosswords. Even though Jim tried very hard to solve the cryptic puzzle, he was unable to break the code. Enigma. A thing that is mysterious or difficult to understand. Because the best-selling author never left his house, he was an enigma to his fans. The newspapers were full of stories about the enigma of the plane's disappearance. Fallacy. A mistaken belief or error in reasoning. It exposes the fallacy of short-term industrial gain at long-term environmental expense. Having money makes you happy is a fallacy because happiness has nothing to do with wealth. Idiosyncrasy. A characteristic or habit that is peculiar to an individual. The little boy had an idiosyncrasy that made him believe he could talk to animals. The politician's idiosyncrasy of always speaking in rhymes made his speeches memorable. Impetus. A force that makes something happen more quickly. This decision will give renewed impetus to the economic regeneration of East London. The high crime rate was the impetus for the hiring of 100 new police officers in our city. Leverage. The exertion of influence to achieve a desired result. The player's popularity has given him a great deal of leverage with the owners of the team. Financial leverage is usually measured by the ratio of long-term debt to total long-term capital. Opulence. The quality of being expensive and luxurious. The market opulence was a reflection of the growing economy and consumer culture. The diamond necklace was an accessory that showcased her own opulence and glamour. Nexus. A series of connections linking two or more things. The nexus of diversity and creativity can lead to innovative solutions to complex problems. The scientist's research aims to uncover the nexus between genetics and mental health disorders. Paradigm. A model or pattern of something, a framework. Challenging the dominant ideology can lead to paradigm shifts and new ways of thinking. The emergence of social media has created a new paradigm for marketing and advertising. Pinnacle. The highest point of, usually success or achievement. He had reached the pinnacle of his military career and held supreme political power. George was making $20 million a year when he reached the pinnacle of his golf career. Polyglot. A person who knows and is able to use several languages. Because my sister is a polyglot, she was hired as a language translator for the United Nations. They are looking for a polyglot who can decipher codes that are written in different languages. Quintessence. The most perfect or typical example of a quality. The quintessence of success is perseverance, and the quintessence of failure is giving up. The quintessence of beauty is simplicity, and the quintessence of complexity is confusion. Resilience. The ability to recover quickly from difficulties. Chris deserves an award for endurance as well as resilience in the face of adversity. A woman's emotional resilience can vary wildly with the circumstances she finds herself in. Pseudonym. A fictitious name used by an author to conceal their identity. For his own safety, the undercover agent used a pseudonym to infiltrate the crime family. The famous singer always checks into hotels under a pseudonym so her fans will not find her. Symbiosis. A beneficial relationship between different people or groups. The animation is based on the symbiosis between the Egyptian plover and the crocodile. A museum should attempt to achieve complete symbiosis with the community it serves. Paradigm. A typical example or pattern of something. Technological innovation is creating a new paradigm, a new way of doing something. The object-oriented paradigm is a new and different way of thinking about programming. Ubiquity. Existing or being everywhere at the same time. The ubiquity of online shopping has led to concerns about the impact on small businesses. While the ubiquity of plastic bags may seem convenient, it has led to environmental problems. Amendment. A change made to an original document. The proposed amendment is to add a claim for wrongful dismissal and breach of contract. Not enough people in Michigan understood the consequences of passing that amendment. Contradiction. Ideas that are opposed to one another. You say that you're good friends and yet you don't trust him. Isn't that a contradiction? We find no contradiction between his publicly expressed opinions and his private actions. Millennium. A period of 1,000 years. The organization is dedicated to scholarly research on life in the next millennium. The book describes the changes that have occurred in the landscape over many millennia. Dissemination. Spreading something, especially information, widely. With encyclopedias, we can disseminate a wealth of information to all students. This report should receive the widest possible dissemination throughout the country. Accusation. A claim that someone is guilty of a crime. You should not make a criminal accusation unless you have proof of the crime. The airlines rejected the accusations and said they would defend themselves vigorously. Bias. Prejudice for or against one person or group. Federal court representatives were suspected of arbitrariness and personal bias. The firm was found guilty of showing bias against females in its promotion practices. Manipulation. Controlling something or someone in a clever way. There's been so much media manipulation of the facts that nobody knows the truth of the matter. The country's opposition party claims the president returned to power through political manipulation. Surveillance. The careful watching of a person or place. The company is planning to place surveillance equipment at both ends of the tunnel. The police have kept the nightclub under surveillance because of suspected illegal drug activity. Privilege. Special benefits available only to some people. The senior staff enjoys certain privileges, such as company cars and health insurance. Having a driver's license is a privilege that can be taken away if a driver is not responsible. Successor. A person who follows next in order. The young entrepreneur hopes to be a successor to his father's successful business. The prince is expected to be a successor for the throne when his father passes away. Perseverance. Continued effort to do or achieve something. Just like any other specialized technique, folding paper takes practice and perseverance. We would like to thank the police for their support and perseverance in the investigation. Dilemma. Situation when we must make difficult decisions. It has been a long road and there were lots of problems and dilemmas on the way. The dilemma over human cloning lies at the heart of the ethical choices facing society. Collaboration. Working together for a common purpose. The government worked in close collaboration with teachers on the new curriculum. He was also a writer of beautiful stories, some of which are collaborations with his girlfriend. Diplomacy. Ability to manage international relations. They were hopeful that diplomacy would help to avoid a war between the countries. It is a reasonable expectation that diplomacy must be conducted in an atmosphere of trust. Panacea. Something that will solve all problems or illnesses. Debt reduction should not be seen as a panacea for the region's economic problems. Unfortunately, there is no panacea that will make cancer instantly vanish from your body. Analogy. Comparison between things that have similar features. There is an analogy between the way water moves in waves and the way light travels. Although the two animals are different, they share a structural analogy in their physical layouts. Elimination. Complete removal or destruction of something. The elimination method is a powerful tool for solving complex systems of equations. The elimination of discrimination is a fundamental goal of human rights movements. Auction. A public sale of goods to the highest bidder. A painting by Leonardo da Vinci was recently sold for $30 million in an auction. The people who attend these auctions are not, for the most part, serious buyers. Consensus. General agreement among a group of people. The consensus amongst scientists is that the world will warm up over the next few decades. There is a general consensus among teachers about the need for greater security in schools. Essence. Most important idea or quality of something. The establishment of a new international economic order is the essence of his article. At this stage, our discussion serves to summarize and describe the essence of our findings. Diversity. The state of being different, or varied. The exhibition on India fails to capture the great diversity of this fascinating country. As the school has a mandatory dress code, there is no diversity in student wardrobes. Exposure. the state of being vulnerable or exposed. There is substantial evidence of a link between exposure to the sun and skin cancer. Against a deep blue sky or dark storm clouds, you may need to reduce the exposure. Hierarchy. Organizing people into different ranks. He worked his way up through the political hierarchy to become the party leader. In regard to political decisions, the Prime Minister sits at the top of the British hierarchy. Longevity. Describe the length of one's lifetime. Just a few small alterations can make a huge difference to our longevity and quality of life. As an expert on the subject of longevity, Dr. Phillips studies the lifespan of a variety of organisms. Hazard. An unavoidable danger, or risk. Mold is a serious health hazard that often goes unnoticed when hidden behind walls. The increasing amount of water pollution represents a health hazard to the local community. Inclination. A person's natural tendency, or urge. We should be grounding our decisions on solid facts, not inclinations and intuitions. When the boy saw the group of bullies approaching him, his first inclination was to flee. Monopoly. Exclusive possession or control of something. Over the years, he's picked off his competitors so that he now has a virtual monopoly. A university education shouldn't be the monopoly of the minority whose parents are rich. Endorsement. The action of supporting someone or something. The athlete's endorsement of a new sports drink made it a popular choice among athletes. The endorsement of a popular politician can greatly influence the outcome of an election. Assurance. A positive promise, pledge, or guarantee. They gave an assurance that the work would be completed before the deadline. His lawyer was unwilling to give him any kind of assurance about the outcome of the trial. Conservation. Prevention of wasteful use of a resource. Because we want to help with energy conservation, we use solar panels to power our house. Cheaper energy conservation techniques have been put into operation in the developed world. Propaganda. Information that is biased, or misleading in nature. Voters should listen to facts and not to the propaganda distributed by the media. There has been so much propaganda against smoking that many people have given it up. Concession. Something that is allowed, or given up. The landlord made a concession by allowing the tenant to have a pet in the apartment. The company made a concession to the environment by using renewable energy sources. Longing. A strong desire for something, or someone. If you are longing to play in the major leagues, you must practice day and night. The little girl had been longing for a pet for several years before her parents bought her a dog. Mechanism. The technical aspects of doing something. Some objects had been entangled with the underlying mechanism of the engine. Bill could not reset the time on his watch because the winding mechanism was broken. Specimen. Something shown or examined as an example. They were thrilled to discover a perfectly preserved specimen of Roman pottery. There are hundreds of specimens of dinosaur fossils on display in the museum's featured exhibition. Harmony. A pleasing combination of different parts. We must never lose sight of the fact that man must work in harmony with nature. We do believe it is possible for different ethnic groups to live together in harmony. Negotiation. Discussion aimed at reaching an agreement. The company is starting a new round of negotiations with its main workforce. The agreement between the nations was reached after a series of negotiations. Obligation. A moral or legal duty to do something. He argues that people in a community have certain obligations to each other. There is a belief that the employer has a moral and ethical obligation to the workforce. Cliché. A phrase or opinion that is overused. By using a cliché repeatedly in the lyrics, the songwriter has made the tune very boring. Come up with something new because your argument is just a cliché I've heard 1,000 times. Bleak. Lacking reasons to feel happy or hopeful. Our future will be bleak unless we protect our environment and natural resources. In terms of both economic prospects and government policy, it appears rather bleak. Persuasion. The act of causing people to believe something. The marketing class exposed the students to the art of persuasion and consumer behavior. She used her powers of persuasion to convince the entire team to switch to a new strategy. Redundancy. Situation where worker is no longer needed. Thousands of bank employees are facing redundancy as their employers cut costs. The enterprise is offering large payoffs to anyone accepting voluntary redundancy. Coincidence. Events occur at the same time by chance. There is no such thing as a coincidence in this world, there is only the inevitable. The fact that we both have the same favorite type of clothing brand is just a coincidence. Deception. A trick or scheme used to get what you want. Detectives followed the criminal for months hoping to catch him in some deception. Misleading advertising is a form of deception, and offenders are liable under the law. Solitude. The state or situation of being alone. The top of the mountain was where the adventurer found peace and solitude. A bit of solitude is often all you need to clear your head and rethink your approach. Triumph. A great success, achievement, or victory. She refused to give up and was able to overcome adversity and triumph over her fears. Earning a high school diploma was a huge triumph for the young man with a learning disability. Endurance. The ability to withstand hardship or adversity. This boxing workout combines 8 moves that build endurance and strengthen muscles. It will be a rigorous course used to increase your endurance, speed, agility, and muscle mass. Intervention. The act of becoming involved in an argument. Hospitals were built as a result of private philanthropy and government intervention. This is precisely why international intervention was not only reasonable but also necessary. Vanity. The excessive pride in one's own abilities. Her vanity prevented her from forming genuine connections with others. Vanity and excess pride have led to the downfall of many great men and women. Adaptation. Adjustment to environmental conditions. The documentary described the adaptation of desert species to hot conditions. I'm sure that many of you have made great adaptations and gained great wisdom. Reasoning. Process of thinking in an intelligent way. Their reasoning is based on the premise that all people are equally good and evil. The most significant networks were short-term memory, reasoning, and verbal ability. Irony. Words that mean the opposite of their literal meaning. The irony is that the new tax system will burden those it was intended to help. He had a powerful sense of irony, and you could never be absolutely sure when he was serious. Bankruptcy. Unable to repay outstanding debts of a business. Nowadays, bankruptcy is a common phenomenon in an economic recession. Normal people find it hard to borrow money or run businesses after so many bankruptcies. Compensation. Money given to someone in recognition of loss. The family received compensation from the government for the damage to their property. There is no automatic compensation available for farmers with animals suffering the disease. Indifference. Lacking interest or enthusiasm in things. Most native speakers of a language show indifference towards grammatical points. Many voters remain unaware of or indifferent to the ideological profile of the candidates. Hyperbole. An intentional and obvious exaggeration. My aunt is a bit of a drama queen, and she uses hyperbole in almost every sentence. If the politician uses one more hyperbole in his speech, I will know he is exaggerating all his claims. Discrimination. Unjust treatment of diverse categories of people. People sometimes have difficulty perceiving themselves as victims of discrimination. The new legislation has contributed to preventing racial discrimination and inequality. Evolution. Process of development through gradual changes. Religious traditionalists objected to theories of evolution being taught in schools. Fossil records indicate that Africa was the introduction of early human evolution. Nostalgia. An affectionate feeling from the past. Watching cartoons initiates nostalgia for the years when my sisters and I were really close. If my brother sees the family pictures and videos, nostalgia may help him regain his memory. Courtesy. Polite behavior that shows respect for others. He understood the importance of table manners as a way to teach courtesy and social skills. I have written to the customer relations director twice, but he has not had the courtesy to reply. Hospitality. Friendly or welcoming behavior towards guests. In modern societies, we have been experiencing a decline in courtesy and hospitality. Every visitor to Georgia is overwhelmed by the kindness, charm, and hospitality of the people. Legend. Set of popular stories from ancient times. Legend says, it is absolutely great to work with people who are at the top of their field. Because the actor was a Hollywood legend, fans all around the country mourned his death. Obsession. Too much thought about someone or something. Like many of his generation, he was a product of Scotland's obsession with football. The obsession with home ownership is one of the causes of the housing market crisis. Plethora. An abundance or excess of something. Despite the plethora of challenges they faced, the team managed to win the championship. When selecting your vacation cruise, you have a plethora of options from which you can choose. Optimism. Expecting that the best will happen. There was a note of optimism in his voice as he spoke about the company's future. Jake's optimism decreased when his boss told him his services were no longer needed. Possession. The condition of having or owning something. Happiness lies not in the mere possession of money, it lies in the delight of achievement. The most precious possession that ever comes to a man in this world is a woman's heart. Procedure. An established method of doing something. The belief is that human error will be reduced if only all the proper procedures are followed. Most insurance companies will not pay for a cosmetic procedure like breast enlargement surgery. Intrusion. Seizing or taking possession of another's property. They condemned the new law as an unwarranted intrusion into people's private lives. Building a new airport near this area would be a noisy intrusion on their quiet lives. Recognition. Ability to recognize someone or something. Societies require government recognition if they wish to enjoy legal rights. There is general recognition that the study techniques of many students are fragile. Abuse. To treat someone cruelly or violently. The evil man would always abuse his dog, kicking and hitting the puppy for no reason. Alcohol abuse can be inherited, but researchers have found few genes directly linked to it. Plagiarism. Act of illegally reproducing copyrighted material. The university decided to fire a professor for committing plagiarism and falsifying data. Be sure to create a watermark for your pieces in order to protect them from plagiarism. Resentment. Angry feelings caused by unfair treatment. Deep resentment existed between the two rival players who had hated each other for many years. Resentment of the past caused the man to be full of anger and stopped him from living a happy life. Speculation. Ideas about something that is not known. The scientist formed a half-baked theory about why the systems were not working. The news reports were published based on speculation and contained few proven facts. Allowance. Money allotted for a particular purpose. Employees who transfer to a different office will receive a transport allowance. Colleges clearly do not make sufficient allowance for the advantages available to these pupils. Discretion. The right or ability to decide something. Since there is a storm overhead, the pilot will depart the airport at his own discretion. Parents have the discretion to determine which television programs their children may watch. Retention. The act of keeping someone or something. Employee retention is strong at our firm because our company owner pays us fairly. They can provide the best training and discuss the issues affecting recruitment and retention. Competence. The ability to do something successfully. We've always regarded him as a man of integrity and high professional competence. The program provides resources to boost social competence with conflict management. Distinction. The quality of being special or different. The distinction between a primary source and a secondary source is important in history. Although they are identical twins, there is a noticeable distinction between the colors of their hair. Conviction. A formal declaration by the verdict of a jury. Offenders are escaping conviction because the case against them was loosely presented. The more you speak with conviction, the more your audience will value what you have to say. Scrutiny. A careful and thorough examination. Although the criminal was released from prison early, the police kept him under scrutiny. That was at a time when police performance was under considerable government scrutiny. Exaggeration. Extreme or overstatement of the truth. There was a degree of exaggeration in his description of environmental disaster. He is notorious for his willful exaggeration, both in narrative and numerical statements. Reputation. People's opinion about how good something is. The president's reputation was permanently tainted by the financial scandal. The UK has a global reputation for the high quality of our management consulting industry. Standpoint. A particular way of considering something. Many of his views about the economy seem to come from a personal standpoint. Learning time management skills can help college students thrive from an academic standpoint. Sustainability. Ability to be maintained at a certain rate or level. Wind turbines have a high level of sustainability because wind is an endless resource. The projections raise concerns regarding the sustainability of the future population size. Extinction. The dying out or extermination of animal species. The loggers say their jobs are faced with extinction because of declining timber sales. Although some species may adapt to the warming climate, many are at risk of extinction. Prejudice. An unfair and unreasonable opinion or feeling. The party's policies were based on prejudice rather than on any logical ideology. The fact that you were late all this week may prejudice your chances of getting a promotion. Apology. A regretful acknowledgement of a failure. The head of state has made a public apology expressing his regret for the conspiracy. Many companies offer a little gift or incentive when they send a customer an apology letter. Stereotype. A fixed, or overgeneralized belief of people. Many men feel their body shape doesn't live up to the stereotype of the ideal man. While many people believe the stereotype all teenagers are lazy, their beliefs are false. Casualty. People injured or killed in an accident. Water contamination is causing human casualties and considerable economic loss. The casualty toll keeps on rising as workers uncover more people trapped under debris and rubble. Contempt. Lack of respect for someone or something. The parents of the murder victim showed a great deal of contempt for their child's killer. He feels that wealthy people regard him with contempt because he is poor and illiterate. Resemblance. A way in which two or more things are alike. Their newest model bears a close resemblance to that of their rival competitor. Any resemblance of a character in this book to a living person is purely incidental. Alliance. A union between people, or countries. Relief workers in alliance with local charities are trying to help the famine victims. The two parties entered into a defensive alliance with each other to win the election. Catastrophe. A sudden and widespread disaster. The catastrophe of a tragedy usually brings death or ruin to the leading character. The construction project seemed promising, but it ended in catastrophe due to poor planning. Deficiency. An insufficient amount of something. We need to identify any deficiencies in the system and address them immediately. The blood tests revealed a deficiency in certain key minerals and vitamins of a person.